Welcome to Heroes and Droids, your guide to movies, TV shows, about superheroes, sci-fi, Disney, and action from Marvel, DC, from Star Wars to Star Trek, from James Bond to the Fast and Furious. We review theatrical films and streaming delights you care about most. Yes, this week we're reviewing The Book of Boba Fett, Episode 4, as we continue to cover the Disney Plus series. Oh, we're excited about it. I am your host, Doc Rotten, and joining me tonight are the SLATTMAN, Christopher Slattery. Sir, how are you doing?
I'm good. I managed to spell Boba Fett correctly today.
No, yeah, thank you. Yeah, you don't want to be like me. I can't even say words, and you want me to spell stuff too? Yeah, all right. Also joining us is award-winning filmmaker Christopher G. Moore. How you doing, sir?
Doing good. Straight from the Steets.
The Steets. That was last week.
Steets of Tatooine.
Oh my God.
That's a new Star Wars slang. Steets.
Steets.
You know how they change things? Like instead of jazz music, they call it something else.
Oh, jeez.
That sounds like a George Lucas thing.
It does.
The space streets are called Steets.
It sounds like a joke, but it sounds so real at the same time.
Am I wrong?
Man. All right. So what we're going to do tonight, ladies and gentlemen, as we review Episode 4 of the Book of Boba Fett, is we're going to start off giving our first impressions. That will be spoiler-free. And then we're going to dive into a discussion, which we will get into spoilers and talk about theories and reactions and all kinds of goodies. If you want to hear about the Easter eggs, we have a separate episode for that. Look for that on the site, and I'll try to put a link in the comments down below for you guys. And of course, if you want to help us out, it's easy and free to do. You hit the subscribe button, the like button, share with a friend. Oh my gosh, that would help us so much. And of course, we want to hear your comments, what you think of this episode and this series in the comments down below. Let's take a look at the card before we get started. The Book of Boba Fett. Still, I have 2021 because it debuted in 2021, but it's actually, is it a 2021 episode series or a 2022 series? I throw that at you.
I don't know how that works if it goes over
I
different years.
think it's close enough that you can round up to 2022.
I feel like I can do that too. I mean, technically it came out on the very last couple days. So anyway, season 1, episode 4. Chapter 4, The Gathering Storm, available streaming January 19th, 2022, directed by Kevin Tancharoen. Why didn't I try to do this before the show? Tancharoen. Help me, Christopher. What is that? How do you say this?
I think you're doing just fine.
All right, well, Kevin,
on your own.
I'm so sorry, Kevin. Please forgive me. Written by Jon Favreau, of course, based on Star Wars by George Lucas. The cast includes Tamara Morrison, Ming-Na Wen, Matt Berry, Stephen Thundercat Runner, Carrie Jones, and Jennifer Beals, the lovely Jennifer Beals, ladies and gentlemen. The synopsis, and this is a SLATTMAN special. Boba partners with Fennec Shand. Yes, that's not incorrect. It's also not very
helpful.
All right, let's dive
I mean, I give him props for not spoiling anything. I mean, that's about as unspoilery and general as you can get.
Yep, starring Boba Fett. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into our review. Starting off with the SLATTMAN. What was your first impression?
I bet the only way that you can make it even more unspoilery is if you put Boba gets in a tight situation.
Gets in a tight spot. They wouldn't say situation, it'd be spot.
Which technically is correct for this episode.
And the 3 before it.
Yeah. Okay, so I hate that I have to preface my my first impressions with this for the 4th week in a row.
No!
And I have a feeling I'll be saying this for almost every single episode of this series, unfortunately. It's not bad. But I feel like this episode is probably the most underwhelming episode we've gotten so far. I don't dislike the answers we got in it. and I thought the acting was fine, and I thought the situations were fun. There were a couple of really cool, fun situations that that our characters were put in and got out of, and mayhem ensued. And I thought that it was you know, it was a story that needed to be told, but it presented almost nothing of worth, if you ask me. Outside of maybe the last like 5 minutes, maybe. But this is the typical we end basically where we started episode, because I mean, without getting into spoilers, it's like most of what was told is stuff that we knew it happened, we just didn't know how, you know?
Yeah.
So
matter of specifics.
Yeah, so it's just I personally probably would have rather it have been a different situation that they had to go through, that their characters had to go through, or I wish that it had just been done in like a comic or something, and the series could have been shortened to 6 episodes. But
maybe, or something else happened.
Yeah, but taking it at face value, what we got, it's got fun moments. It's got good moments in it. It's got some really good visuals too, and some really cool and amazing effects, you know? So I got to give props where props are due, and that's where it is, really. You know, the story kind of takes a back seat, but everything else is kind of a little bit better than what we've gotten the last couple of weeks, if you ask me. So
okay. All right. I feel you. I bet Christopher G. Moore has a retort. Sir, what is your first impression of Book of Boba Fett episode 4?
You know, it's kind of weird because I have friends that are pretty big diehard Star Wars fans. I have one friend who actually has a exact replica of the Boba Fett outfit and actually created a Star Wars fan film. And he's not really happy with how Boba Fett has turned out or whatever. And so, and I have a lot of friends that just think the show's crap and horrible. And I've seen a lot of people posting online, "Oh, this movie's crappy and stupid," and all these different things. And I'm like, I will have to say, I feel like this show, I think I'm coming off negative too. This show feels a little bit more scattered than The Mandalorian is.
Yes.
And I think it has something to do with them trying to, I don't know, either find some meaning or just trying to fill in all this backstory that the majority of it really didn't need to be filled in. Or I really feel like they should have told it a little bit more linearly. You know what I mean?
Maybe, yeah.
Because I feel like the flashbacks kind of suck you out of, and I think this episode primarily is probably my least favorite episode. Even though it had amazing parts that I really loved, it didn't really. I mean, there's even like a scene where he basically recaps all the things that happened in the previous episodes to someone else. And I was like, we really don't need that scene. Why do we need that? You know what I mean? To where like my favorite part was the ending because there's a buildup for what's about to happen. It makes me kind of excited to where it's going to go after this and what characters we're going to meet. So I don't know. I mean, there's moments like, you know, I'm not kind of sure about moments. Oh, I like that. I like this. But then it's like, I don't know. It's like this whole arc of him going to the back to tank and doing flashbacks. I think, you know, it almost sucks the water out of it, just like Tatooine. It sucks the life out of it to where it's like, it feels like they're not really sure what they're trying to tell, you know? And, you know, I mean, I don't know. To me, it's almost like the prequels, you know, to where it's like we need to have all this backstory on how all these different things happen. When sometimes you can just tell that in a line of dialogue, and you don't necessarily have to show every little thing that happened have got them to where they are. So I don't know. I mean, there's moments that feel like, okay, we've seen this, we've done this, let's move on, you know. And then other things, oh man, and I love this action scene, but then it's like other things are very simple, like, you know, there's a without being spoilery, there's an element of revenge that happens. It's like, oh, that's all. You know what I mean? It's so simple that it kind of like, okay, there's really no build up to that. So what's the use? And so I think, I don't know. I feel like the Mandalorian had more to it, had more layers of what's happening and more things that kind of tied in. And this one just feels like, oh, this is what happened to this, and this is how this happened, and then all these little things happen around it, and so it feels kind of scattered and kind of lost, kind of like you're lost in the deserts of Tatooine as to what it's trying to do or the story it's trying to tell. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I feel like I kind of believe it or not, I kind of agree with you guys. Kind of agree with Slatman. I feel like it could have been a little bit more concise in some of its storytelling. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's like it, and you know, as much as I see all the negativity, and I don't want to feel like I'm on the same bandwagon as some of that, because I really feel like people are focusing so much on these other, you know, like the mod group. Like, oh my God, why in the Star Wars universe would they have shiny vehicles? And blah, blah, blah. Oh, this is the slowest chase ever. Blah, blah, blah. Oh my God, you can see inside.
And that's exactly how they sound too.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, it's almost like the fans have now become the toxic people, and I don't want to be part of that. But at the same time, I do have issues with it, but I also see the good parts. I mean, there's a horror action type scene that happens in this episode that is one of my favorite things I've seen in this show so far.
Okay, well, I can't wait to hear about that.
So so I don't know. I don't know how to feel. I mean, I'm kind of torn. I mean, I was trying to find the good. I mean, Star Wars, you know, I'm one of those few people that's like, I've loved everything, even though they've had issues, except for the Star Wars Holiday Special. but even that, the animated Boba Fett cartoon is worth watching, at least that part of it. But everything else, I found good things, even if I hated this character. Oh, but that scene in this movie and that scene in that movie I liked, and I like that, you know. So I think you can always, I mean, in the same way they talk about there's still good in him, you know. I feel like there's good in these things, but I think people are so focusing on the negative stuff. But I do see people's issues. It does feel like there's something, there's a few parts missing from this speeder that doesn't make it race as well as what it should.
Yeah. I'm going to play Slatman here, and I'm going to preface my first impressions with this comment. I would rather watch this show, The Book of Boba Fett, over 80% of what else is out there on TV. That, you know, regardless of whether I like this episode over other episodes or even the first four or how I feel about them, I love being able to see the Star Wars universe on a weekly schedule. It thrills me to no end. So maybe I'm an easy target because of that, but I'm enjoying the ride. Having said that, I'm not sure I like this particular episode. It spent most of its time telling us stuff we already knew or we were aware of. We just didn't know the specifics. And some of the things they did, I don't think we didn't need to know that. It just wasn't very helpful or useful, and it didn't progress the story. There is a fun Godfather kind of moment, and there's some other, there's some characters that return that we like to see. You know, we'll put it out there. BK, is back, so I want to see that. So there's hints of stuff, but I think in the end, I can sum up my first impressions was, unlike the other three, I didn't want to watch this again when it was over. The other three, I wanted to. Oh, I can't wait to watch this episode again. This one, I'm like, okay, I'm good. To be fair, there's always one episode thus far with The Mandalorian that kind of falls into this category. It's kind of like a warp episode, and a lot of the Marvel stuff had it too. There's always one in the middle that kind of just shuffles the pieces a little bit, and this is it for this one. It isn't directed by not James Gunn,
Robert Rodriguez.
Robert Rodriguez, but I enjoyed the direct. There's no problems with the direction or the acting or anything. It's just that it meandered a bit, and didn't really care for it. It's
It's okay.
I
It's
mean-
okay. I fully think that as fans of a series, we have to be able to criticize something when it's not perfect or when it's not great, and we have to be able to say we still love it even if it's not perfect and great.
I think so. I think so. I mean, I enjoy, unlike some of like Christopher's toxic friends that he was talking about, the toxic fandom out there about Boba Fett himself. I like what they're doing with the character. I like the maturity of it, because it's either to me it's going toward one of two conclusions. Either he's going to succeed and become a basically a good guy, a kind of a Punisher good guy, right? A Wolverine or a Punisher good guy, or he's going to revert back to being a bounty hunter out of treachery and disillusionment. So right, so it's either going to be a success story or it's going to be this this tragic story for this character. But the character isn't the same character people are talking about that they from the past. He's gone through 5 years of change, and I like that. And I also think that there's, I'll just throw that out there. I'll let you guys comment about that. There's more stuff I want to talk about with the other characters and banthas and stuff like that. But what do you think about the character's growth in this particular episode?
Well, first of all, this character was only in 5 minutes of the movies, okay?
But he also has a lot of...
He has some in the Clone Wars, but...
He has a lot of character development in the Clone Wars, throughout the Clone Wars, and then in like books and comics and stuff that are considered canon.
In fandom. And in fandom.
Some are canon, but I think...
Yeah.
But like for instance, one of my friends who's a huge Boba Fett fan, his biggest issue is that he feels that Boba Fett is still a sidekick character in his own story, because even when it came to, and we're already in Spoilerville, so
yes, we're in
even when it came to destroying the Sarlacc pit, Fennec Shand is the one that pressed the button to destroy the Sarlacc. So, because she seems to be always there,
And she
carrying
was
her
also
weight.
the one that dropped BK into the pit a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, she's the one that saves the
'cause
day.
she's always doing the stuff to help save him, which is he helped save her. But so I mean, I can understand people that I guess people want him to be just sort of this loner and not have to be dependent on other people, and they could have easily done that, I guess. But at the same time, characters do grow. They're not always the same type of character in the same way that Anakin had to grow from being Darth Vader and realizing, stuff, or other characters in the Star Wars universe. So I don't know. I mean, still think he's a badass, and he still hasn't lost his killer instinct. He killed a whole freaking biker gang just by assumption that they're the ones that killed. We don't even know for sure if they're actually the people that killed the Tusken Raiders.
Yeah.
So I mean, they could just be basically what the Pikes said. Oh yeah, they did it, and the Pikes probably could have sent someone else to do it. So I don't know. I think he's still badass, and I still like those elements. And I don't mind him having growth and stuff, because I think not all characters have to be stagnant and be the same thing that we always see. I mean, to me, that makes him a more full-fledged character as opposed to this sort of automaton. It just goes out and I'm going to kill this person for a bounty. I'll kill this person for a bounty. And that's just like a bounty hunter series.
Yeah, if it was just him as a loner, it wouldn't stray far enough from Mandalorian. I mean,
well, yes, Mandalorian was more like a Boba Fett type character.
Right. Yeah. So they've got to separate. I think they're struggling with that a little bit. I don't know, but at the same time, I really like. I don't know. I like Tamara Morrison as the character. I like that we get to see a lot of him. I don't mind that he doesn't wear the armor or he takes the helmet off. You know, he is more of a Godfather like character, right? He's more of that kind of person in this. He's trying to be more political.
Also, can we give a shout out? Like, how many action series have a badass person who's in their 60s and a lady who's like
in her 50s,
almost to 60, like two years from being 60. So these are two leads in a badass action Star Wars action TV show. So
and they both look fantastic.
They both look amazing.
Oh my god, yes.
Yeah, dad bod no more. Like I want to end that. Like the couple scenes we've gotten, like Tamara Morrison, like where he doesn't have like 50 layers of clothing on. He doesn't have a dad bod. I don't know what people are complaining about.
Well, and regardless the issues that we have with the storytelling and stuff, I'm sorry. I mean, as much as I had problems with the episode, I love the shootout when they're trying to steal the slave one. I love the sort of like the fun little thing where they're chasing after the robot and they're fighting the robots.
Oh yeah,
the robot was hilarious.
Yeah, and it's just very funny. And where you just like he's so nervous he shuts himself off.
Isn't the robot part of wasn't he in the
he's
the palace afterwards, right?
Okay. He was underneath the table when he was feeding the Sarlacc.
Yeah, and so and I like the moment between BK where Flashdance Lady's like talking to him about
Flashdance Lady, Jennifer Beals.
And I'm sorry, I as much as like we really didn't need the scene, but I kind of like the scene where they go into the Sarlacc pit, and when they're to me that felt like it felt like a horror movie, the way you'd see the lighting down in there when that shot from inside the mouth. And I don't know, I love that scene so much. That's like that scene really stood out because of just the way it was shot, and how it ended, and also how it basically, in the same way that he closed out that storyline with the Tusken Raiders, that kind of closes out his history with
the Sarlacc,
the Sarlacc. So.
And that might be explained the one where but that's not, I don't know. I don't want to go into the crack dragon and the
Crate Dragon,
Crate Dragon. But I want to talk about this scene because I thought it was a little bit of a mistake, a little bit of a gaffe, because unless I'm wrong, so you guys correct me. Does Boba Fett not know that the Jawas took his armor? I mean, why would he be looking in? Why would he even look for his armor in there?
I had the same thought.
Well, but the thing is, like he was out of it. He was probably emaciated because he was in that Sarlacc pit for such a good amount of time. The acid was eating away from him, and he was basically passed out when they took it off of him. So he probably didn't even realize what happened until he's laying there without his armor on. So you make that assumption, oh, I must have climbed out of this without my armor or something. So, or maybe he threw the armor off,
I thought he woke up and saw the Jawas when they hit him in the head.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, but he was passed out. So I mean, I had questions about that too. But at the same time, he was, mentally, and then also, he was dragged around, beaten. He's had drug lizards up his nose. I mean, you're probably not gonna. I mean, it's been 5 years, so your memory is going to be fuzzy anyhow as to what happened to that. So, and if it's not there, maybe he thought, well, maybe one of those little tentacles or something dragged it into there. So I think there's a possibility. I did question that too. I was like, wait a minute, didn't he had it on when he pulled out? But if you go back and look at it, he was beat on the head, so he might have like memory problems because he got hit on the head by the Jawas. He was already emaciated when he came out of it. So I don't have as much a problem with that as much when you think about the situation that he was in. But I don't know. I thought that whole scene was really well shot and framed to where it was like being inside that. I mean, for the first time, that big didn't look goofy like it did in Return of the Jedi. It looked like something's kind of scary, when Fennec like dropped down to the glass and then the thing is like coming up. It felt like I was in like an Aliens movie or something. I love that. I love that. That to me, that's one of the few things that felt like I was in a horror movie or like a horror video game.
Yeah, I mean, as a scene, I liked it, but as part of the story, I just didn't find. I didn't understand his purpose. There's a couple of things. I mean, I don't. I mean,
he's trying to get his armor back.
Flashback. Yeah, I know. But everything in the flashbacks here, I just don't feel we need.
Well, and I mean, I think that's a problem. Sometimes you don't necessarily have to have every little A, B, C, and D spelled out as to where he got to where he is.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that, and again, that's also screenwriting 101. You don't necessarily have to show everything. Sometimes you could do it within a line of dialogue or whatever, because he does need to get back to, getting his armor at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it made for like a fun scene, but at the same time,
it felt like it was written just to have a fun scene. I guess that's my problem.
Well, yeah, and I agree, and sometimes I'd rather see a fun scene than making logical sense. But I don't know. But yeah, but at the same time, I think that's been that's been probably the biggest issue for me. Even though I've loved this series and I love some of the things, is what is the reason? Why do we have to? I mean, I wish they showed like he got from Tusken Raiders to here. Let's continue the story there. We don't need every flashback, every little thing. We understand he's been through a lot, but I just want to see the story. It's kind of like, I mean, like I'd rather see a series where him and Fennec Shand are doing bounty hunter missions together.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of stuff would have been more fun. But I guess also that would have been similar to Mandalorian too. So,
well, I'd like to see the whatever the story is on Tatooine in his present. If that was kind of elaborated on a little more. I want to get more of that, because what we got in that this time around there's, as much as I enjoyed the BK scene in the bar, it just really wasn't that necessary. It was kind of obvious he was going to end up working for him, and it didn't need to be that elaborate, but it was fun. I can't complain. It was fun, but it felt padded. And, other than, it just didn't feel like there was much progression in the story itself for this episode, and I really had a problem with that. We get the gangster scene, we get the Godfather scene, but
I think maybe the biggest issue it's the show's very repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like we got a reference early on, like about BK was, gladiator early on.
Mm-hmm.
And now in this sequence, she's mentioning the gladiator thing again, like, oh, you were this great gladiator back in the day, blah, blah, blah. And so it feels like we're just repeating stuff. In the same way that he has that whole scene was like, yeah, I was with the Tusken Raiders, and then they were murdered, and then, blah, blah, blah. And it's like we get, okay, that almost could have been just the explanation of how you... But we wouldn't have gotten all that great stuff with the Tusken Raiders either, because we've gotten some really wonderful, also we wouldn't have that whole train sequence and stuff if we weren't the Tusken Raiders. So
yeah, the difference is that was character growth, and here we're just connecting dots, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we're finding Fennec. Hey, here's how she survived. Hey, here's how it's not really neither character is really growing, other than understanding why Fennec is now by his side, but we know he saved her, so we know that she feels like she has a bond in that respect, and she said that during The Mandalorian. So it just feels, I don't know. That kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But again, I say this all with a big, huge caveat, because I still enjoyed my time. I still enjoyed it, and I'm not going to complain, because I'm glad I'm getting this. I'd rather get this than nothing, and this is better than much other things that are, anyway, I've said that already. But yeah, it needs to start ramping up over the next few episodes.
Hit the gas.
Yes, we need to get the wheels rolling here.
Well,
So
and
speaking of the, sorry, go ahead, Christopher.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna segue us into what we think's gonna happen in the next episode.
Well, and I think that's the big thing for me. I think the way it ended was more about like, okay, now we're going somewhere.
Well,
You
we
know?
could literally have ended that way the last episode. I don't know. Yeah, I get you.
Well,
but
it could have, yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, I mean, to me, there's much more potential and stuff happening. You know, that's going to be kind of cool. You know, I know people are just kind of tired of Easter egg characters popping up here and there, but I mean if you got like which, you know, Star Wars has always had its Western references, but if you have like that, you know, a Magnificent Seven type thing where you've got all these different characters that come together from different parts of the Star Wars universe to fight against the Pikes.
it's kind of
How
where they're
awesome
heading.
is
Yeah,
how is
they are
that? I
heading
mean,
way.
that's basically it. So if you get like, we get the little Mandalorian music at the end. So if we get Din Djarin in here, well, you know, if we get other characters, you know, that are known for like taking money to help, I mean, there's so much potential. I mean, does I can't remember her name, but yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, what if we get like some of the other Mandalorian?
Oh,
Characters,
Bo-Katan.
Yeah, Bo-Katan, or on some of those show up again. You know, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I know there's a potential for like a really sort of a geeky spree or a geeky squee of coolness with, you know,
When we get to episode 7,
a huge group of characters. Or what if we get like Rex, or we get like or other characters that we know from this. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm kind of excited to see where it goes from here, because finally we're getting, instead of it just being like we're preparing for something, we're going to do something. So,
well,
I don't know.
I think what most people are guessing is that we're going to get a collection of more bounty hunter type characters. You know, like Bosk. Or
Dengar.
Or Dengar, yeah. Or maybe, I don't know, is IG-88 dead? Or is he still around?
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
We know IG-11's kaput.
Well, yeah, but maybe IG-80's his cousin.
Still around, yeah. So, and, you know, there's whispers of Cad Bane. I'd like to see that. That would be kind of sweet.
I mean, as crazy as it sounds, this would be the perfect opportunity to introduce Dr. Aphra, who has been known to take jobs for money.
She would be,
and has a connection with BK.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, there's that. I mean, and
then there's her murder droids.
Her murder droids.
What?
You don't know about her murder droids? Oh man, it's 000 in BD. They're literally droids that were designed for murder. BD is this little R2 unit that has like rockets and stuff and flamethrowers and stuff that come out of him. And 000 is a protocol droid that has like every one of his fingers is like a different like type of weapon, like a rocket out of one finger. He's got like a poison like syringe and another one. He can bring a buzzsaw out of his arm, and
well, that sounds like a winner to me.
Yeah, they're crazy characters.
I mean, there are a slew of bounty hunters. I mean, this could end up being like a bounty hunter guild, right?
Well, and let me just point out a few things that I've seen online. Some people said, "What if
speculation? We're doing speculation.
Speculation. Knights of Ren.
This would be before Kylo, of course, right?
Yeah, and there was even I think darksideoftheforce.com posted what maybe Aura Singh may have a cameo in Book of Boba Fett. So I don't know. I mean, you know, there's so many possibilities. I mean, I think when I remember when The Mandalorian first came out, we were all thinking, oh, we're gonna get cameos from all the famous bounty hunters from the Empire Strikes Back, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we got sort of variations, because we got IG-11, which is, you know, the same type of robot, and we get was it the Trandoshans, you know, that species, and so that which is similar to Bosk. So, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, but again, the sky's the limit, and they can really have. I mean, they can also do some deep cuts that we probably not even talk about that may pop up.
That's
and
true.
Like,
And there are some deep cuts. I've looked at a list of like all the bounty hunters. I was like, that's insane.
So yeah, there could be Clone Wars. Definitely characters from Clone Wars we haven't talked about.
They just finished up a run in the Star Wars comics all about the bounty hunters.
Yeah, they did.
So,
they did. Yeah.
So they could pull from that list of those that survived.
Yeah. Now, Fennec is the one that says something about hiring big guns, right? So is she the one that's going to go find them and get them? Is her connections the ones we need to look at? Like,
Oh my gosh.
That's where Cad Bane would come in, right? So,
well, I don't think her and Cad Bane are in speaking terms, but you know who she is on speaking terms with? Omega.
Well, I would love to see Omega show up, or the the Bad Batch.
That one's a deep stretch, though. I don't think that's going to happen, but it would be cool.
Because they'd really have to know how the Bad Batch series plays out to make sure nobody, might end up, if they end up dying or.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get Omega in this run. I mean, if we get a second Boba Fett series, then or a live action Omega series, I think they'll if you come together.
If you get any of those, I mean, the interesting thing is, Tamora can play different variations of some of the clone troopers. So,
and he's gone on record saying he's willing to.
Yeah,
so
who knows if he's already filmed?
Well, that's the thing. He's already part of the series.
I mean, Andrew Garfield lied to everybody for, months.
Yeah, but he's
years.
a werewolf, so it doesn't matter.
So you're saying Spider-Man's going to be part of the
Spider-Man?
No, I'm saying if Andrew Garfield could lie, then Tamura Morrison could lie too.
I think Doctor Strange is going to show up.
Oh, you got to do the Spider-Man dance, Doctor Strange.
Benedict Cumberbatch as Thrawn.
Oh, don't!
No, it's Mephisto. It's Mephisto. I don't know. I'm putting my chips down on a clan of bounty hunters at the end of episode 7. 7 of them. 7 bounty hunters. We have 3, so we need 4 more.
Well, if they're going the Western route, which they've had so many different versions of Westerns in this, that would be interesting if they had like 7 people, So I don't know.
Which is also 7 Samurai, which is also another avenue that Star Wars has taken. Samurai films. So you got that coming.
Well, Westerns actually stole from Japanese cinema, so it's all,
It's poetry.
I'm just throwing it out there, So that's I'm thinking we'll have a lineup of 7 bounty hunters. We have 3.
As long as Tamura Morrison is riding that damn Rancor by episode 7.
Oh man, no, serious. I mean, if they go out in town and he's riding that freaking.
This is Chekhov's riding a Rancor.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's Chekhov's Rancor.
Why would they bring it up if
he's not going to do it? Well, could. I don't know. I'd maybe not.
Danny Trejo.
I was going to say, is Danny Trejo
show up
with
a bunch
7?
of his Rancors?
Oh my God, a slew a gaggle of Rancors.
It'll end up like Lord of the Rings, where they have these big monsters and fighters.
Oh my! All right, well let's go ahead. Unless somebody has something else to run into, let's go ahead and wrap this up with our recommendation, our score of 1 to 5, and of course our favorite scene. Let's do that. Slatman, you are first.
Again, it's not bad.
Not bad, ladies and gentlemen.
It's not. I don't think it's a bad episode, even. But my biggest issue with this episode is that it seems, outside of maybe 5 minutes, it seems unnecessary. So from a story
Filler.
perspective, yeah, from a story perspective, it kind of drops the ball for me. But what it lacks in story, it's got some really cool set pieces, some very, very cool special effects, and like practical effects too. Like the practical effects in this series, they've been top notch when they've used them. So and they've got, and it's has some. So I remember a couple on, I think it was episode 2 that had the bikes chase scene, or was it episode 3? I don't remember.
Well, there's a couple of different ones. Are you talking about the one through the city?
The
The one
moped.
Yeah, that was the third episode.
Yeah. So when I said that, I felt like when in that episode, I felt like that scene was comical when it wasn't intending to be.
Mm-hmm.
But this episode has a scene that comes across as comedy action when it was intended to be that way, with the little robots and stuff.
True.
And
true.
It works so much better. And so for me, what this episode is lacking in story, it makes up for it in action, in acting, in effects, in music and sound design, and it makes it worth watching. And it's got some fun moments. I am going to give it a 3.5.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Yeah, it's if the story was better, if the story had a better flow to it, or if it was more concise, or if it was rearranged a little bit differently, I feel like this could have been a little bit higher for me because of how well done some of those scenes were, you know. But the writing is just, you know, I guess the writing had to slide for something else to prevail.
I guess so.
So, in my favorite scene, I'm gonna kind of cheat because I don't think either of you are gonna take both of these scenes. But there's just one moment when BK is fighting the Trandoshans, and Boba Fett walks in, and the Trandoshan just kind of flies in front of him, and he just stops, and he's just like, and then later on he's like, it was worth a shot.
Yep.
That made me laugh so much. And then the other honorable mention is the scene within the kitchen with the droids.
Yes, that's a fun scene. Absolutely. All right, Slatman, thank you so much. Christopher, you're up next. Your recommendation, your score 1 to 5 in your favorite scene.
I definitely recommend it, you know, but I will say that I think this episode feels it's straining, just like Boba Fett's outfit strained for him in Mandalorian.
Oh, a little bloated, huh?
It's a little bloated. One too many things of spotchka drinking in the belly. And I think, you know, and as much as and the weird thing is Jon Favreau wrote this series, so I kind of have higher expectations for him. And I think the way this is played out is almost like the one thing that I worried about, because we have this character who's so well known, people have such high expectations, and you go into like, okay, we need to explain all these different things, and then like some things like, okay, we're just over explaining, maybe we don't need to spend so much time on this stuff, and maybe we just need to get into the story, you know, because at some point you have to, like, you can't keep relying on flashbacks. And then you have flashbacks, and then you have him talking about the history that he did flashbacks. So it's like, okay, we get it. You know, I was with the Tuscans and I did this. Okay, we get it. Let's move forward. Let's go to contemporary times and let's do some shit. Okay. So yeah, and I think this one feels like, okay, they probably could have reduced this series maybe by an episode or two, just to get to the meat of it, to get to the rancor meat of it, and enjoy, you know, what's happening. And yeah, but at the same time, it's like in the same way that I can look at the prequels, I can look at the sequels, and I can say, oh, I love this scene. I love this scene. This is pure Star Wars. I like this character. I like this piece of dialogue, or I like this visual element. And this episode still has those parts to it. You know, that some of the action scenes are a lot of fun. You know, seeing parts of the Jabba's palace. We never saw like the back entrance to Jabba's palace before. That's the first time we've seen that. You know. We get to see sort of more of the innards of the Sarlacc pit for me.
Innards.
Yeah, and we also get to see a Wookiee pull a guy's arm off, so that's always cool. You know, but at the same time, everything didn't really glue together too well. It's like all the missing pieces. It doesn't make the Mandalorian armor. Just makes it fall off of you because you haven't really spent it. You spent so much time reiterating elements that we already heard, as opposed to, like you said, Doc, having more of an arc to everything and having reasons behind what people's motivations. Because repetition can only get you so far. So as for rating, I'll give it. I'll give it 3.5. I mean,
wow, that's low for you.
I think it's a fair score.
I do too.
I mean, I normally would like to give these episodes higher, and I think I have. You know, I gave the first episode a 5 right? Just because we get to see him crawl out of the Sarlacc pit. That was just okay. I'm done. I don't need to see Bora. I just need to see that.
Well, see that's something that had to happen. We had to see that versus.
Well, I had to it. Although
how Fennec got her body parts.
The big Star Wars fan on Slash Film said we didn't need to see it.
I think
so. There's huge Star Wars fans that felt like we didn't need to see it because we realized he made his way out of it. But I wanted to see it. I just need to know once and for all how it happened. I've dreamed of that since I was a little kid, and I wanted to crawl out and bring Darth Vader back. So yeah. Yeah, I always thought he brought his evil side back, and because I was that kid.
You were that kid.
That's why my mom worried about me, and still does. Because I have a life-size Yoda in my living room.
Who doesn't?
So yeah. So I 3.5. It's a little bit low, but I think it has more to do with just how kind of scattered it is. It feels like it's trying to throw all these pieces to make an episode, as opposed to let's just go forward to this. Now, besides that, my favorite scene is the Sarlacc pit scene. I'm sorry, even though that probably could have been extracted. That's probably one of my favorite things I've seen in this series so far.
Okay,
hands down. I mean, I like some of the stuff like the train scene, but I don't know. As a lover of horror, and I want to see Star Wars horror films or series. Call me, Disney. Seriously, let's make something.
It could work.
Make something happen.
It can work. Because we've seen horror in this universe. Let's just press.
There's some horrific stuff in the universe.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like you have almost like demonic possession, where a Sith can take over your body. I mean, there's all kinds of horror elements that happen.
Parasites that do the same thing.
Parasites, the mind thing, and Solo and Rogue One.
The spiders in Mandalorian.
Well, yeah, there's all kinds of horror stuff. Just make a whole film of it. Anyway, I'm going off a tangent. But again,
Stormtrooper zombies. Yeah, that's what we mean.
Stormtrooper zombies, Death Troopers. I read the books. They're amazing. So yeah, the Sarlacc pit scene is my favorite because of just the way it was shot. It was almost like Blair Witch Project instead of monster, because you had this light and you saw the monster. It's like, oh, what is that? What is that? Oh, it's the beak. It's like, I don't know. I love that. That was so cool. And then also, if anything, that when they did the weapon, that sort of ended that chapter in his life.
Sure
did. Yeah, because we have the Jabba barge which sunk. So that part of history is gone, and then also the Sarlacc pit is now dead. So that part of his life, that he's ended that chapter, and now it's moved on to what should have been called House of Boba Fett or House of Gucci or House of Fetty or
House of
whatever they call it.
Gucci.
Because it's more of a gangster show than it is
It
a
is.
book. So anyway, I'm done.
You're done. Okay, so I think 3.5 is actually a really good score because that's mine too. So we're 3.5 across the board. Yeah, for me, at some point I'm going to watch all the episodes again. This is probably one I'll fast forward through some of it, or if not a lot of it. I mean, I do want to see the BK scene again and hear the scene at the end, because I think there's some plot points at the end of this once you get the Godfather scene, if you will, but it's just not one of my favorites. I really enjoyed the first 3 quite a bit. So we'll see, but I'm still holding on hope that the next 4 are going to be, and I'm really looking forward to what the promise of this episode carries. The gathering of the storm, I think is coming. It's not in this episode. It is the promise of the gathering of the storm, right? So my favorite scene though is actually in the Godfather scene, and when they are saying what's going to stop us from, I think it's after this, what's going to stop us from killing you, and then the Rancor kind of bites up through the things, and they're like, they all sit down. Okay, because they're all sitting over top of the Rancor. I love that. That feels like what Jabba's palace should be, right? Or Boba's palace, I guess it is now, right? Fett's palace. It needs to have that danger lurking underneath, and I like that quite a bit. I wish that BK just wasn't sitting in the background for that scene. I wish he was a little bit more menacing, hovering over somebody or something.
Standing right behind
Yeah,
Boba the whole time, just
or behind some of the other people, intimidating them, right? You need to be a little bit more of a presence, but that's me. That's me wishing, because I really I really like that character. I want to see that character cut loose a little more effectively than he has thus far.
Well, maybe we'll be able to see that more when it gets into full-on war against the Pikes.
I hope so.
Because him punching people left and right and people's arms off.
He got that thing
now
going.
that they have the costume, if there's a Dr. Aphra show.
Yeah. Now they have half of it, so they, the budget's already been spent. So let's do it. Oh man. Well, regardless, I'm very excited for episode 5.
I am too. So I guess we'll have to see. Maybe they're gonna get back on the non-train tracks of the series and trying to get back into what they need to be telling story-wise, and arc-wise. So
yeah, I think they will. All right, there you go. That's our review for the Book of Boba Fett episode 4. Be sure to check out our other episode that covers all the Easter eggs and special little things that you can find. We had a nice long discussion about that, and we hope you enjoy that as well as this. Christopher, Slatman, thank you for joining me. This was so much fun.
Yeah, it's a blast.
Yeah,
I should get that on
arm off.
Should get that on a t-shirt.
It's a blast. All right, guys. I know there's a problem here. Let's say goodnight.
Good night.